Hello friends, and welcome back to my crafty space. My name is Crystal, and in today's video, I'm going to be sharing a flip through of my son Jonah's 6x8 story album. Story albums are the home for the majority of the stories that I am telling each month through my scrapbooking. For this album in particular, every story in here mostly focuses on my son. Each of my children, Jonah and Isabella, have their own series of story albums where their personal stories are kept. And these are the albums that, as they get older and move out of the house, these are the books that will go with them. They will inherit these. Now, this is the very first volume of Jonah's album. So this is his Spine Jonah volume number 1. For his, I chose this navy blue pleather 6x8 album, which was released by Ali Edwards in 2020. For my title page, I created my own repeated stamping using the digital Ali Edwards stamp set. I can't quite remember what the actual name of the stamp set is, but it is kind of a scripty font. I just wrote the name Jonah on here and repeated it on an angle. And then in the middle, I add these label stickers, which came from an older One Little Word kit with the volume, the number, and then the month of the first spread I created in here. So the first one I created was in August of 2019, and the oldest layout in this album is from August 2019, and the most current project or layout in this album is from August of 2021. So these stories span over the course of 2 years. Now, as we flip through this, I do want you to know that I have a playlist created specifically for this album. Inside of that playlist are going to be any of the process videos that I have for the stories I told. There may be some stories in here that I created through my Patreon website, which is a member-only group. I have a link to my Patreon down in the description box below, so if you're interested in finding out more about that, that's where you can find the information there. And then it's also possible that I have some layouts in here that I created for courses that I've taught, or they could have just been projects that I didn't even do a process video for at all. There's quite a few of those in here. So let's go ahead and flip through this. If you want to find the process video or the playlist of the process videos, that will be in the description box down below, as well as a playlist for flip throughs of all my story albums. So the first layout I have here is one of the very first layouts I ever created using a story kit. This one, I used the Play Story Kit to document all of the different things that my son enjoyed playing with at the time. He would have been about maybe 1 year old at this point when I made this story. So some different things that he liked to play with as a baby. Next, I have a layout that I created using the Family Story Kit to talk about Jonah just I think that I did this on his birthday. Yes, because exactly 1 year ago, you came into our lives. So I documented a little story about him on his first birthday and paired that with a photo here. So this was another one with no process video. I didn't even have a YouTube at the time when I created these layouts. Next, I have a layout that I created using the Rome Story Kit from Ali Edwards. This one, I wanted to talk about Jonah's love of walking. I have a picture of him on this dirt road that we walk on all the time to go to our downtown. I loved this one, added a couple of digital stamps on here, and then some dimensional embellishments. This one I do not have a process video for. I believe this would have been a project that I turned in for the Ali Edwards creative team. Next, I have a layout that I created for the Watch Story Kit Crush series. For this one, I told a story about all of the things that Jonah was like getting into. So he just was a complete disaster. I've got him getting into this cupboard that we have some Tupperware in, which is a-okay. Then I have a picture of him opening up and stomping all over our DVDs. And then I have a picture of him eating my stamps. So, you know, we go from like, oh, funny to like, oh my gosh, to like, oh boy. So this was really fun one. And a fun story to depict like the stuff that he did back then, because now he doesn't do this anymore. So it's fun to have that documented. This is a layout that I do not have a process video for. For this one, I used one of the Stories by the Month kits. I want to say maybe a July kit, maybe a June kit. I don't really remember. It could have even been May, but it was definitely a physical Stories by the Month kit. I used the stamp set primarily to create my layout. I stamped my own background papers. I stamped my own like sentiments here. So all the fine joy and the rainbows were all done with the stamp set. For this one, I have family photos here, and then my journaling pulls out of this little vellum pocket and just talks about some gratitudes and some things that we were doing at the time. So places we were finding joy at this time. Next, I have a layout that I created for the Kindness Story Kit Crush series. For this one, I created this heart, which was a lesson from the, the December Daily Product Play, I believe number 4. I think this was a layout that maybe Allie did. And I decided to take this and alter it so I could use it for just a regular everyday story. So for this one, I created the heart with patterned cards. I cut them all apart, and then you can lift up the bottom to see a photo of Jonah, this choose goodness, and then just a kind thing that Jonah did that day is what I journaled about there. So really, really love this one a lot. Next, I have a layout. Oh, and there is a process video for this. I think I mentioned that, but just in case. Next, I have a layout called Write It Down. This one, I believe I used the list story kit potentially and just created some digital circles here, added puffy stickers for 1 through 5, and then told 5 little micro stories about Jonah. So this I did totally Laura Wanzik style, totally inspired by her for that one. Next, I have a layout using the You story kit from Allie Edwards. There is no process video for this one. It's really quite simple. I just added a couple of embellishments here in the middle of a photo and then talked about, you know, this just being him. I said this photo is the epitome of you and how much he loves his dad. For this layout, I used the Give Story Kit, and this is a process video inside of the Give Story Kit Crush series. For this one, I used the sentiment, give me a break, to talk about Jonah just being messy. Like, this was such a theme, such a theme for us in the last couple of years. It's finally starting to get better. I took a picture in an apron that my mom had made and then grabbed a bunch of my supplies to go with this one, just to help tell the story of Jonah being a mess all the time. This is a story I created using the Digital Progress Story Kit, and I have this in the Progress Story Kit Crush series as well. So for this one, I enlarged a chipboard piece to be the size of my photo, and then attached it so that when you flip it out, there's space for journaling, and then the photo and some embellishing right here. This was about Jonah starting to walk outside for the first time, and look at those baby cheeks. You know, when you look at this photo to this photo, like, gosh, he's growing so fast. The layout here on the right side I call Adorable You. For this one, I used 2 Paige Evans cut files to create this kind of graphic type of layout. So I used some of the lines for journaling, hand wrote in there, and then just kind of told Jonah how I think he's adorable. Next, I have a layout that I used the Transition Story Kit for. For this one, I used the digital kit. I cut out some of the asterisk shapes and made them into these floral elements, and then printed off some of the chipboard pieces on canvas paper, so that is really textured. Put a photo of him in one of them. I really love this page. It's like a pattern paper, but it also has dimension to it, and I think that that's really cool. On the right side, I've got my journaling, some filler cards, and then a flip up portion where I've got a quote card that I printed on that canvas paper, again, with a photo that's got a stamp on it underneath. This one is a process video. as is this one. So this is a layout I created for the Learn Story Kit Crush series. And this one I talked about playing equals learning. So the different things that Jonah is playing with that is also helping him to learn more about the world around him. This was a story I did last year. Next, I'm skipping here, is a layout that I did using a June Stories by the Month kit from 2020. For this one, there was this sun on one of the journaling cards, and I created a cut file out of the sun and then put that here on the page. So I made my own suns on the page, which I super loved. This one I didn't put a lot of journaling in, which is totally unlike me. All that I did was type out and add this little quote that says, "You are my sun, my moon, and all my stars." So it really doesn't say much of anything. It's more of a decorative type of page. This page right here is one that I created in my Patreon group using a Colorcast design embellishment as my jumping off point, which just says, "You make me happy when skies are gray." A lot of times when I have circles like this, it makes me think of centers of flowers. So I created these photos in a petal shape, put them around the page, and then I have them numbered 1 through 6. Yep, there's the one. So 1 through 6, and that pertains to the journaling over on the right side, 1 through 6. Next, I have a layout that I used the Change Story Kit to tell. This was for the Change Story Kit Crush series. This one is about transitioning Jonah from a crib to a big boy bed. Super love having this story in here. On this next layout, I am telling stories of gratitude, or just a letter of gratitude to my son. I have a picture of him playing outside with some embellishments here, and then the background paper of this one, it's actually a painting that my daughter made. So I kept her painting, and then I thought it would be really cool, like a graphic mixed media type of page to add in with this story about her brother. So that is what this one is. I printed off my journaling on photo paper and then stitched it down onto the paper. This one is a part of my Gratitude Story Kit Crush series here on YouTube. This next one, I believe, does not have a process video. This one was using the March Stories by the Month kit. This one has another flip up here at the bottom. So this card flips up, and then there is journaling underneath for things that were happening around here. And then just some photos of being outside with Jonah playing on our playset. This next one is part of my Rest Story Kit Crush series, so it is here on YouTube. I created my own pattern textured background using a border punch, and then used the digital kit to cut out this heart on my silhouette, put the photo in the back side of it, and I just wrote a story about being grateful for my son. That's a lot of times the angle I go with when I'm writing stories about or to my kids, is gratitude and things about them that bring me joy. This next one is a layout I created using the Friends Story Kit, and this one is part of my Friends, it is in the Friends Story Kit Crush section, although I have not crushed that kit yet. Whenever I create layouts using these story kits, I create a playlist for that story kit, and I just title it Story Kit Crush and then the name of the kit. So you'll find this there, even though I have not yet totally crushed this kit. For this one, I have a picture of Izzy and Jonah coming down the slide together, and I talked about their relationship as friends with each other. This next one is a project that I created using the October Stories by the Month kit from 2020. This is probably one of my favorite pictures of all time. Love this one. I talked about 3 memories about this particular moment, about this trip that we went on with our friends last year, and then used some of the really autumn feeling pieces to just emphasize the autumn feel of these photos. There is a process video for this one in the playlist. Next, I have a couple of layouts that are fall and Halloween themed. For this one, I created this page during a live video, which I do have linked in the playlist for this album, but the project I don't put together until about 2/3 of the way through the video. So if you watch that and you're looking for this one, you might want to fast forward it until you're towards the end of the video. For this one, I'm using a 2x2 pocket. I've added in some like sequins pieces. I've got some ephemera bits and then a bunch of photos. I was documenting our booing last year, which is taking small gifts to our friends and family members and leaving them on their porch. Then tucked behind the photo here, I do have this little tag piece, and I have a journaling card that I had printed out with a bit more of the story. So these just stick in behind the photo there. On the back side of this, I have a layout that I actually just created. This was the last layout that I needed to create in this album. This I used the October, maybe 2019 Stories by the Month kit. I used the digital version and took a chipboard that I enlarged and then took out the sentiment and used that for my journaling, and then did the same thing where I've got some photos, I've got some cards, I've got some embellishments, and this one is talking about going to the corn maze with Jonah this year and how he actually was able to participate. Next, I have a story about just some stories of right now. This was a photo that I took of Jonah when we went to a zoo visit. I want to say actually I've got it in March. Then I took these plastic numbers and listed them out. So I've got 1 through 10 and then told 10 stories about Jonah right now at this point in time. I do have a process video for this one. It is in amongst a live video. So again, when you go to that one, you'll probably just want to skip around until you find this one. This is a fun interactive spread that I made using the Happy Little Moments kit from Future Craft. For this one, I took a journaling card, I enlarged it, cut it out, and then used that to create this swivel piece here. So it looks like this color wheel, and then when you spin it, there are a bunch of just little tiny photos of moments where Jonah was happy or where he made me feel very happy. And I added just a tiny bit of journaling here on the right side. My next layout is using the Cozy Story Kit. I have a video for this one inside of the Cozy Story Kit Crush series, as well as in the playlist for this one too. This one I was talking about snuggling with Jonah, how he's just a snuggler, and I love that about him. Isabella is not a snuggler, so it's nice to have at least one of my kids who is. Next, I have a layout where I used the Kindness Story Kit to write a letter to my son about hoping, that he grows up to be a kind man. For this one, I've got the journaling on the left side. I stamped the Dear Jojo and Love Mommy. I also have this clear transparency in between that has the quote that says, "You don't have to move mountains, simply fall in love with life. Be a tornado of happiness, gratitude, and acceptance. You will change the world just by being a warm, kind-hearted human being." So that overlays the photo behind it, which is a silly photo of my kids licking the door together, which makes me laugh. For my next story, I used the Learn Story Kit for Story Kit Crush to tell my children, and primarily in this one went in Jonah's, to talk to him about always being a learner, that the best gift we have is the opportunity to learn our entire lives. So that's what my journaling is primarily about. I have a picture of the two of them sitting here together and then use different components of the Learn Story Kit to tell that one. For this layout, I do have a process video. This one I used the Action Story Kit to tell a story about just, again, some right now stories. A lot of times when I am telling stories about my children, that is another angle that I will take, is like, what are some things about them right now? Things that might change later down the line, like, how cute is this little dinosaur coat? He won't always have a cute dinosaur coat, what was it like the first time he went out in snow, this tasting of the snow for the very first time? So just some things that were happening right now. The left-hand side of this, I used pattern paper and some digital elements that I had printed out. For the right-hand side, I took one of the journaling cards and blew it up, and it had this frame in it. So I erased what was in the frame and created a clipping mask to add my photo inside of the oval. And then I printed this on matte white photo paper and then created my own template for stitching. So this is all hand stitched. on here. My next layout, this one does not have a process video. It's just a simple layout about being out in the sun and playing at the playground. This one here is a layout I created for the Paige Evans the Paige Evans cut file creative team. And this one I used an Aztec background that I backed with a bunch of different papers and then created these two triangular spaces, one to add a photo, one to add text. And I was just talking about how he loves playing in the dirt. For this story, I used the evening story kit, which, oh, and I should mention that the cut file one does have a process video. This one is using the evening story kit. I created this one for Story Kit Crush, so you will find a video here on YouTube. And I talked about the evening routine for Jonah. So I've got a little bit of journaling up here. I wanted this to look kind of like clouds. And then the different times and the things that we do at those different times for his bedtime routine. This layout, I used the Bloom Story Kit to create. I made this one for the Bloom Story Kit Crush series. And this one is about different ways that I see Jonah blooming and growing, and mostly in the way that he is getting more and more and more capable with moving his body. And then last but not least, this is one of my absolute favorite projects or favorite photos because we were playing like chase and I had my phone and I like popped out and scared him kind of. So I like scared him, but then also he was just dying laughing and I snapped a photo and it looked like this. So he looks a little crazed, but also I know that in this moment, it was a moment of just pure joy. So I took a card from, oh gosh, I think this was the May Stories by the Month kit, and it had these paint swipes on it. So I cut all of the paint swipes out. I added my text on there, put them on the photo, and called this one done. There is a process video for this one as well. All right, friends, so that is Jonah's volume 1 of his story album. I am currently working in volume 2 for both Isabella and Jonah, so I don't think it's going to take me super long to get to the end of those. I need to actually order another album so I can start a volume 3. A lot of times I work in multiple volumes at a time and just fill in the pages wherever they can fit and go. And then when I get them finished, I do the voice or the flip throughs. All right, friends. Well, I feel like I have done a lot of talking, so we can go ahead and wrap this up. If you enjoyed this flip through of Jonah's story album, I would love a thumbs up on this video down below. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can see all of my future crafty videos. I'm going to be back later with some process videos in the near future, so hopefully I will see you back here for those. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next videos. Bye, friends.